This is a class. I'm gonna tell you guys some things right now.
Let's go.
What we gotta do. All right. Now,
Hey, go let me know class is in session.
you get back over there. You
I'm
can
not
work on
going
it.
to. He right over here.
Dakota's okay. Just leave him where he's at. All right. So anyway, what I was getting ready to give you guys a little. When we got a no start situation, we got a no start. All right, we got a no start and a marker that barely starts. What we're gonna do is, what's the first thing we're gonna do when we're going out there and we get a ticket, somebody gives us a ticket at the shop we're working at, if we're fortunate enough to be working at a shop, and we're getting ready to do a no start. Where do we start? What's the first thing you're supposed to do on any problem that they're giving you to work on?
Visual inspection. No. Look at the DTCs.
Nope,
No.
that's not right, that's not right.
I'm literally gonna put all the oh Lord.
Think about it. What would you do? Just your pumpkin, use your pumpkin. You're walking to this car and even though it's a no start,
Oh, you try to crank it up.
bingo!
Oh.
Verify the complaint. You gotta see if it'll crank.
Well,
Because if you're,
like,
if you go out there and you spin it over and it fires
I
up,
thought we had got already past the.
And you
yeah,
didn't-
that's what I'm thinking. Like we
then-
got past the.
then you're gonna say, is it an intermittent? You see, is it something that's coming and going? Now, if it is an intermittent, you're gonna do something, if you go out here and you start fooling around, jerking on wire harnesses and everything, if it is a no start, let's say you verified it, and you start jerking on them wire harnesses and everything, and the daggum things, then it starts up, you don't know what you did.
No.
And it's gonna quit again, right? So you didn't do yourself any favors. You're a whole lot better off if you're gonna do a vehicle inspection on one that's intermittent. If you just pop the hood and stand here, maybe with your flashlight, I don't know whose this is, but it's laying up here, police flashlight, it's a little teeny thing. You shine your flashlight around and you see what you see. Is there wire harnesses rubbing against the exhaust? Is there scratching across a bracket? Is there something melted? Is there something unplugged? Is there some rat's been chewing? See what I'm saying? Do I see animal damage? Do I see where they've built a nest here? Do I see droppings? Do I see anything like this that indicates there's anything been under there that wasn't supposed to be under there? Or has anybody else been working on it? Has somebody been tinkering with it, messing around with this thing? All right, so after you've done your vehicle inspection or your visual inspection, when you verified that it doesn't start, which when it does start, it's another story. All right, so then you're gonna sit here and look, and you're gonna then plug your scan tool in. All right, now see the scan tool, don't talk. Plug it in, try to start it, turn it on, go to your scan tool. Scan tool can't communicate. What now?
Got the car on.
Huh?
Put it on, but don't crank
Well, you gotta turn on the key, and you're trying to talk with the scan
Oh, so
tool,
this-
and the scan tool won't talk.
Okay, I was making sure we wasn't that.
Yeah, no, we're not, this is not a trick question. You've got the key on, it won't start, scan tool ain't talking. Scan tool ain't helping you.
And you said it's an intermittent no
What
start.
is what do you find the ECT reading?
Engine coolant temperature.
Trying to learn.
Sit down over for a second.
Yes.
All right,
It could be a.
all right, so we're doing a little class session here on a no start. So what we're talking about is the first thing you do is you verify the complaint. After you verify the complaint, you raise the hood and you do a physical inspection, just look at it and see what you see. And then if you don't see anything, you're gonna go back in there and you're gonna turn on the key and try to talk to it with a scan tool. Let's say the scan tool don't talk. See, there's a lot of places where you could trouble tree out and go this way or that way. Will the scan tool talk? If it does, you pull your codes and you look at your data. Like, if it will talk and it's not starting, I wanna know, are the injectors clicking and do I have spark? If I don't have spark and the injectors ain't clicking, I'm going after the crank sensor. See what I'm saying? I'm gonna go see what's going on there. On this little Ranger out here, I could take the wires loose from the engine controller and switch them around at the engine controller, pins 21 and 22. And it would, whenever you spun it over, you'd see a little RPM come up and then drop off to nothing, and it would never start that truck. So 21 and 22 can be reversed. See, something as simple as that. Or I could do the Adam snap thing and go back up in the wire and just go snip.
Man, line.
He'll cut a daggum wire so fast and you go be hunting that thing. Of course, Noah's like a machine. He goes straight to it, you know what I'm saying? But anyway,
Victoria ground problem was tripping me up.
there's also the other thing. So what are we supposed to have when we go under here? Let's say, on all these vehicles, there's gotta be power powering up the injectors, and all of the solenoids that a computer operates is gonna be powered up by something. On your Chrysler products, it's an automatic shutdown relay. On the Ford products, it's the power relay. And then on your GM, sometimes they'll have one feeding the injectors, you know what I'm saying, that you can look, it'll be a pink wire usually on the GM cars, the 90s and the 2000s. You'll see pink wires with black stripes feeding stuff that's powers, coming from relay or whatever. Long and short of it is, you're gonna dig into that thing and say, where am I supposed to have power when I turn on the key? Where am I supposed to have power? Well, I'm supposed to have power at the idle air control, I'm supposed to have power at the injectors. Do I have power there?
You're supposed to have power going to the starter to start it up.
Yep. Well, we're talking, it'll spin over, so you already know about that. Now, the other part of it is, let's say, at your throttle position sensor, you got 3 wires that plug into your throttle position sensor. You disconnect the throttle position sensor connector, where the wires are going here. What's at those 3 wires? What's supposed to be there?
Ground, power, and
Power meaning what? All 3 of them go to the engine controller.
well, one is supposed to be hot, one is grounded, and I guess one is like a switch.
So, this one right here, let's say, is gonna be your 5 volts.
Okay, that's power.
Reference voltage. This one right here is gonna be your signal return.
Okay.
The one in the middle is gonna be the one that changes when you give it the gas. All right. Now, if I go and if this signal return wire is cut, let's say the signal return wire is cut, what's this wire gonna read if I cut that signal return wire? What am I gonna read on that wire?
Yeah, it's closed all the time.
5 volts. If this is grounded, I'm going to read about 1 volt. But see, if there's no ground reference, you're going to read a full 5 volts there. So if you read 5 volts right there, you got a problem with your signal return. See, I could go up in there and unkey the pin from the signal return and pull that back. And all of your sensors would read 5 volts. And the computer ain't going to know what to do. If you short the 5 volts out to ground, then the scan tool won't talk, the injectors won't fire, you won't have no spark, and you won't have, nothing. Scan tool won't, everything just, goes south. And that's on your Fords. Now the Chevy's a little different. Long and short of it is, you're gonna first check and make sure that you have power at like your idle air control, your injectors and all that. If you have power there, then I wanna know if I've got 5 volts. If I don't have 5 volts, then I'm gonna unplug the engine controller and I'm gonna see if I've got a short to ground on that 5 volt wire. I told a story about a Ford police car, Crown Victoria, and whenever they would turn, it would stall. Turn, it would stall. And I had my equipment on it and everything, and I'm driving along looking, and I was in a mall down there in an open parking lot where one of the places where there was no business that day. So I turned and I'd turn back and forth and it stalled. Finally it stalled and it didn't start back up. And my scan tool was dead in the water. Oh no, well, what happened was, I found a wire that was going to the fuel tank pressure sensor. Remember, there's one of those in the gas tank. It's got power, it's got the signal return, the 5 volts, and the signal. If that 5 volts gets shorted across a bracket going to the gas tank back there, you can look all you want to in the engine compartment. And if it's got that one reference voltage signal going all the way back to the gas tank, if that's shorted to ground, you ain't going nowhere. And your scan tool ain't talking. And you're sitting out there. And you can't get under the car. See what I'm saying? Somebody had actually worked on that car at a city shop, and whenever they plugged the wires in, instead of routing them the way it's supposed to, they dragged them around a bracket and plugged them in, and every time that you'd turn, it would do this and it would short out that wire. You got it? I also saw one that had these rubber boots going to the fuel pump when it was mounted on a frame on a phone truck. Me and a shop foreman driver, you turn, stall, come back, turn, stall. When you straighten it up, it come back, you turn and stall. And I got under there and it found out this little spade connector that was inside that boot going to the fuel pump under there was touching and letting the fuel pump run until you twisted the frame a little bit. He's sitting there thinking, I grabbed a hold of the headache rack on the back of the thing, that camper shell thing they got on there, and I shook that thing and shook it to leave it bouncing off the wall in there, and it never would install, but when we turn a little bit, it would install. You remember another time I told you about? I had one that whenever I would back it up, it would stall. You remember me telling about that one? And it was because of the little sock on the gas tank. Somebody had put a fuel pump in it, knocked the sock off, and figured they just put it in there anyway. And whenever it was low enough on gas, and it would, the gas would slosh, whenever you stopped or when you backed up, it would oil can and stop up the bottom of the pump, you lose your fuel pressure. See, what you basically got to be doing if you're going to look at an intermittent like that. But we're talking no starts. Basically, a no start is going to be something, if you know the engine controller's awake, remember what I've always told you, how do you know the engine controller's awake before you even do anything? You hear the fuel pump running, you know the engine controller's awake and it can think. If you don't hear the fuel pump, you could have a bad fuel pump, or you could have an engine controller issue or a bad relay. Joey's boy had this Ford pickup truck. This is important. I want you guys to know how to do this, because when you get doing your nose starts for your finals, you may not blow straight through it like he did, although he struggled a little bit. Long and short of it was the theft light was on. Okay, so what's that mean? So the theft light, you got the little fat-headed key, right? Got a little chip in it. You switch on the key, it actually sends a little radio wave across that key, picks up a number in that key, and then your passive anti-theft system gives the go-ahead as far as whether or not to start the vehicle. Well, on this particular one, you turn on the key, we had no starter operation. We basically had a theft light that was blinking really fast, ding, 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 ding. And that's basically telling us the anti-theft system. Is this an anti-theft system problem? Then no. Plug in there, I got nothing from the engine controller. Engine controller ain't talking, your theft light's gonna be blinking, right? So I said, I need to find out what's going on over there. So I got my test light, hook it up to ground, forward to one of the injectors, unplug it, or back probe, whatever, you don't want to damage the wires, back probe a little bit, and I saw a very dim light there. Should be bright, should be battery voltage. Check your battery voltage first. Battery voltage is bright, it ought to be bright at the injector with the key turned on. It was dim. I reach over here while I'm looking at the test light, I tap the power relay, it comes on bright. What have I found? Bad relay. Knew it in 2 minutes. Plug another relay in there, theft light's gone, he's good to go, right? Never assumed anything, but the long and the short of it is, if that engine controller, which is powered up by the same wires on that Ford that powers up the injectors, like that. On the Chryslers, you got the, ASD relay. Now, occasionally you'll have a situation where the ASD relay won't be on all the time. It'll act kind of like the fuel pump relay on some of those platforms. So make sure you know when that relay is supposed to be on and all that. All right, now you got a no start. Let's say you switch it on, you hear the pump. Your engine controller's awake, plug it in. You don't really get any appreciable codes. You may get an EGR flow code or something like that. That ain't gonna keep it from starting. When you're looking at your codes, you need to think, well, that code keep it from starting. Is that code related to my problem? I mean, we can address that after this. Because you can wind up in a situation where you get sidetracked working on some junk that wasn't even written up. And you get that, you start chasing that, and you get that fixed, and now you spent $300 of the person's money, and what they came in for has not even been addressed. So you work on that other stuff second. All right, so I'm hearing the fuel pump. What do I do next? I hear the fuel pump, got no codes, where am I going?
Check the sparks.
Okay, so spark's not a bad thing. Pop, 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 pop. I got spark. I got a strong spark. What now?
Fuel gauge.
Fuel pressure gauge, put a fuel pressure gauge on it. We'll see what kind of fuel pressure we got. All right, now what do we need to do before we do that? Let's say we get 35 pounds of fuel pressure. No, I want to make sure I know what the fuel pressure is supposed to be. On that white Chevrolet pickup we got out there, the little white one that you worked on yesterday, it requires at least 60 pounds of pressure before it'll even operate those puppets. And if you got 54 pounds of pressure, that particular truck won't start.
I think Nick's mom's here for that car.
Oh, okay, well, all right, tell her I'll be through in just a minute.
Well, she just pulled up, so she didn't come in.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, so here what we got is a situation where we need to know how much pressure it's supposed to have. Has it got as much pressure as it's supposed to have, or has it got way too much pressure? All right, so let's say it's got good fuel pressure, right? Got good fuel pressure, injectors are popping, or injectors are clicking.
Whenever you start it.
Try to start it, it don't work.
Say start.
No, the starter's spinning up a storm.
Oh, I thought you said start.
Did you recognize my starter sound?
Well, hey, what is left to
Yeah.
do? Check sparks, check.
I'm gonna pull a spark plug out. If the spark plugs are wet, it ain't gonna start. If somebody's just been starting it and moving it around and hadn't been letting it get warm, because whenever you start it cold, how many of you guys ever drove anything you had to choke? You had to choke it to start it. Lawnmower, chainsaw, you know what I mean?
A standard
All right.
car.
All right, so if you're, well, it's not just a standard car, but what I'm talking about is if you've got a choke knob on the dash, you got to pull out. You crank it up, and over the period of about a minute or so, you work that choke all the way back in. All right, the choke's automatic. on the later model carburetors, but it actually has to choke it on the ones that are fuel injected. In other words, it's got to put a little more fuel in there. But if you crank it up, don't let it get warm, shut it off. Crank it up, don't let it get warm, shut it off. Like they do at used car lots where they move it from place to place. You're gonna see one that either washes the wings down and wets the plugs or whatever. Pull them plugs out. If the plugs are soaking wet, throw a new set of plugs at it. All right, I had one time that was at the body shop. It stranked and ran just fine when it came in there, but when the temperature dropped to 40 degrees, it wouldn't start. Well, the intake air temperature sensor was wide open, and that was causing it to substitute 110 degrees for that on this Dodge pickup truck. And it was actually putting too much gas in there because it had 40-degree engine coolant, 110-degree air, and it was putting too much gas in there. It was soaking the plugs.
Didn't we talk about this the other day in class?
We talked about, may have had it on one of the
Thursday.
presentations.
Yeah, we took a little test on it too.
Now there's another one, that's right. Well, you did have a one up there that talked about that. Okay, there was another one we had. It was a no start sometimes. Ran good a lot of time, but a no start sometimes. And what the deal was on that one was, it was a Chevrolet, and it was it was a 2004 model Chevrolet Tahoe. And sometimes it wouldn't start. And we caught it not starting finally. It was really aggravating. Trace it not starting. Is Mom here?
Huh?
Is your mom?
That was my sister.
Oh, that was your sister.
Yeah,
Okay.
she said she get paid Fridays. She gonna come pay for it Friday. But I know y'all usually don't be here Fridays.
Adam is going to be here Friday, but what I can do, make sure that lady in the book gonna be in the bookstore on Friday, and I'll put the car over and give her the key,
Okay.
and so she can just go pay her and take the car from there.
Okay.
All right, we can do that. Anyway, what the deal was on that one was, and I've talked about this a time or two, but the fuel composition sensor, it was flex fuel, was telling it it's 45% alcohol. And I called him, I said, y'all ever use it? Because what happened was we found out when it didn't start, we pulled the plugs and they were wet. It wets the plugs, what happens? Why won't a wet spark plug fire? Because the spark is running on the wet, the spark ain't jumping the gap, it's running on the wet, right? All right, so I said, okay, now we've got a situation where this one's a no start. Sometimes, it was an intermittent. When he finally caught it where it wouldn't start, pulled the plug, they were wet, putting too much fuel in there. Let's look and see what's going on. Well, we looked in there and the fuel composition sensor was saying 45% alcohol. We checked how many hertz it was supposed to be delivering. That wasn't good. Called them up. Are y'all using alcohol fuel in this truck? No, we never use any E85 crap. You don't get no gas mileage off it. We just put straight regular gas in it. It was misreporting the alcohol content. It was causing it to be hard to start. And so I said, all right, we're going to get one of those ones. That sensor was like $700. Better make sure you know what's wrong with it before you sell something like that, shouldn't you? I mean, don't get the idea that, it's not my money and I don't care, because you will care if you put it on there and it don't start, and now you're going to say, oh crap, you see that sensor, thing right up there, that rusty looking thing? That thing, yeah. And somebody's got my flashlight laying up there, I don't know what that's about. But anyway, that's my snap-on flashlight. All right, you see that fuel composition sensor? That is a $700 part, and that's what was wrong with that. Put it on there and they never had any more trouble with it. All right, so long and the short of it is, you kind of got to have some kind of attack. I had one day that they took me out there to the front because they had a Pontiac, an old Pontiac that wouldn't start. And I'm checking the pink wire with the black stripe, and we didn't have any juice there. Got it? And so I went and found out there was a bad relay on that one. You can actually sometimes jump some power in there artificially, and if a car fires up then, but it don't fire up when you remove the power, from the injectors. You know that the relay that feeds the injectors, because you got to be able to find out where that is, and all that kind of thing. Anyway, and when y'all go out there and you attack an O-start, then you got to have an idea of what kind of a plan of attack you're supposed to have. Did you know that mechanics like no starts better than they do just about any other job you get, because it's fun? It's like solving a puzzle. They really do. I mean, if a guy's a real troubleshooter, you throw him a no start, he's happy as a lark, because this is like an egg hunt. You just go out there and find out what's wrong with it, and all that.
Having to backtrack everything, trying to follow.
Well, sometimes I've basically had them where they come from other shops, and people will say, well, this has been to this shop and that one and this one and that one, and it won't start now. And so sometimes you have to go and find out, you gotta check all the basics, fix the foundation before you go out with the house, man. You gotta just check the basic stuff. And don't forget to look at your compression stuff. What are you supposed to be listening to when you're spinning it over you're supposed to be listening, and that's even compression puffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if it's going, yeah.
So it's kind of like a maze. You get
Where-
like, you go in, you get like 3 main paths, which could be like the 3 main problems that could be wrong with it, and then the further you go along, the further down the path you go.
Yep, and that basically you're doing your own little mental trouble tree.
Well, something like that, don't you gotta check the, picoscope, put the picoscope in and check the pulses and stuff?
Well, you can do that. That's not a bad. It's not a bad plan. You know, I usually try to get the easy stuff out of the way first, and then before I go in deep with the scope and all. And you know, of course, build a crank and a cam signal library on all the cars you can. Makes you a lot sharper and be able to look at that. I got some of those I can show you. I got a whole library full of those things. But the long and the short of it is, if you don't even have a plan of attack on what am I going to do when this thing's not starting, if you're just standing there. And you know, how many times have I sent an automotive student out here to bring out a trainer car, and they come walking back and they say, it won't start. I don't want to hear those words. You know, I want a guy that's going to go, I want somebody that's going to go find out why it won't start.
Well, you ain't telling me that, but like, no,
Yeah.
I come let you know, so
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can tell me, give me confirmation
Yeah.
to start working on it.
Yeah, so, well, no, basically what you're going to do is you can come back and say, it won't start and I can't get the fuel pump. See where I'm going with that? Now, you remember what I told you? You could pull the fuel pump relay and you can get your meter, one that doesn't have this part fried, get your meter, you unplug the fuel pump and you want to find the normally open, and you're going to find the common. You're going to make sure you got power at your common, and you're going to go to your normally open and you're going to see if you got a ground. So I'm going to get my test light. I'm going to see if I got power at my common, and then I'm going to go to the hot side and I'm going to see if the one going out to the fuel pump's grounded.
How much a good one, how many amps a good?
A fuel pump that's pumping gas will be pumping from 4 to 8 amps. 4 to 8 amps is what you're going to see. If it's out of gas and it's spinning dry, it's going to be like 1.5 amps. And sometimes you'll have a fuel pump that's running, but there'll be no gas in the tank. And you can't tell. Have you ever been able to hit a gas tank and tell if there was gas in it? I can't. When I hit the dadgum gas tank, it sounds the same when it's got gas in it. It sounds empty. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I can't tell no difference. I mean, I've seen people bang on the gas tank, and I'm saying, what's that good for me? You know, that kind of stuff.
Light.
Yeah.
Be looking for.
All right. So tell me about this. What you think? What you gonna be able to do? You gonna be able to fix these?
Yes.